This is Listening with Franklin Livingston, and our guest is Johnna Solan.
Today, in the morning,
Yes.
you talked about you love to read romance.
I read books, yes.
You read books.
Yeah.
But you use the term romance.
That's the specific genre that I read the most of.
Okay. Define romance to me, what it is. And then you seemed unhappy with a lot of books and the authors. And there was something
Not so
missing.
much the authors, but I just felt like a lot of the time, I feel like romance is supposed to be something that, well, within the dynamic that I would hope it would be in, is actually just building a foundation with each other and actually building a relationship with each other and actually taking those moments to actually build on the emotional intimacy with people and actually trying to make sure that you stayed connected and that you talked about things and talked through things before making a rash decision. I'm not against spontaneity, but like I want to like plan things out more and actually have a relationship where I value his time and he values mine. And we actually cherish each other's time and we still make time for friends and family while also still growing in our own relationship because granted, I want us both to put God first, but I also want us to put each other first in that realm too. And in regards to romance writers, I feel like there are some books that don't take the time to build up to the physical intimacy. Some of them just kind of jump straight ahead. Granted, I still would prefer the build-up over the actual physical intimacy, obviously. Like, I actually miss books that actually just told you a story of two people falling in love instead of just them falling in love for a hot minute, having physical intimacy, and then kind of either staying together or not.
So, but falling in love, is love still a thing?
I believe it is with the right person. Granted, nowadays I feel like the idea of marriage has changed, but love is still there.
How has it been changed?
Because for a lot of people, marriage is a piece of paper or a license. And I'm like, I still have the old traditional belief that a marriage is a union of God between two people becoming one. And that's my traditional thinking of it. I would like to get married before having any potential kids, and I want a foundation that we could grow our children on. I don't want just us to be two people who say, oh, we love each other, and then you have a kid and then you're not married.
Why does that happen?
Society. I know that sounds rude, but a lot of the times we normalize certain things within society that we shouldn't. A lot of specifically Black women end up becoming baby mom with the mother of a child to a man who didn't prioritize them or make an effort for them, and then decides to not even make an effort for the child. So a lot of the times it became a stigma over time and no one really valued an actual relationship. They just valued a connection for the moment and that's it.
In the books, you mentioned mostly books that you read are more, if I understood correctly, more focused on the sexual aspect of it. Two people meet, engage in a sexual act, and either they are together or they fall apart on the basis of like we're not compatible or we didn't like each other. Is the liking or deciding to remain together is on the basis of sex?
Sometimes yes, because some people stay in a relationship just for that, whereas others actually want to build a foundation and actually just support one another and actually be there for each other emotionally.
No, the books you were reading, or romance, you think now, the concept of romance.
Sometimes it's more so on the basis now of like red flag, green flag. If the guy is attentive, if the guy is actually showing appreciation for the woman, if the guy, it's more so on the guy, even though it could also be on the woman too. Because sometimes the woman can have a very toxic personality, but of course it's covered up by them being blindly in love sometimes and vice versa. And we don't always pay attention to certain characteristics because we're choosing to believe that that person can change. And yeah, that's what I've kind of read in my books. As I said, there's nothing wrong with it to an extent, but it's like I rather just kind of just build more of a foundation and then lead to that. I kind of want to go back to the books where it just led to them just being happy. And not to say that all the books don't end like that, because they do, because it's all about a happily ever after, obviously. But I rather it not focus on the physical intimacy. I rather it focus on just building a relationship between two people. Yes, if there's a misunderstanding, that they don't just walk away from each other. They actually just try to resolve it in the moment. Because I realize with a pop cultural term, everything is considered a trope now. And one of those tropes is miscommunication or misunderstanding. And I realize I don't like those in books because I feel like people need to actually have conversations, like grown-up conversations, even if they're hard. And a lot of the time people are afraid to do that. And I feel like with the presence of God at the head, you're able to have those conversations a little bit easier, not completely easier, because sometimes it can be a very distraught trauma from your childhood that you don't want to dredge up, period. But I feel like with the addition of God already at the foundation, you can learn to open up with each other more.
I think, yeah, you're totally right. But I think sometimes this idea of God being the head of a marriage is just an idea. And this is from my personal experiences and opinion. Two people who come into a union, whether it's a Christian union or not, first thing they need to know is that they have to give themselves up. Like you were saying, putting God first and then putting my partner first. The partner needs to know that, and you need to know that. And what does that mean? Here's an example. I was watching someone's reel. It was a podcast reel, and the person, a female, started telling about her schedule. And she said, I wake up at 2:30, I guess, and I do this kind of meditation, I do this kind of exercise, then I do this, and then I, in the morning after sunrise, I'm calling that morning, she spends time with her daughters. And I am thinking, okay, so what about the husband or her spouse? How does that person deal with her waking up at 2:30, especially if she does those things by herself? And when she talked about two daughters, she added, she's a single mom. Now, a lot of people will say, I'm judging her, but in my mind, if I had known this is the lifestyle of this woman, and if she was to get married to a regular human being who doesn't have any crazy schedule or dietary restrictions, I kind of knew that she wouldn't be a good fit to be a wife. Why? People who are like this, a particular diet for six packs, so people who want to wake up at 2:30, a person who wakes up at 2:30 will have very less energy in the actual evening. They might want to go to bed at 5. Whereas their spouse who might be on 9 to 5 schedule might need them after 5. Watch a movie, eat together, cuddle, and leading on to something more. But if that's not there, then there is a disconnect. So if you begin seeing someone and you find that spark right away, and you end up in their bed, or they in your bed, and you have a great chemistry in the bed, and you think, oh my God, we are so hot, everything is great, let's spend our lives together. It goes away when the actual lifestyles are revealed to the other. And you end up, that. And you might have seen some stories, celeb stories, that one person, I don't want to mention name, that one person wakes up early in the morning, the other person does not. One person goes to bed early and the other person wants to go out late night. So these are the things I think that are important, especially when you talk about a believer's marriage, putting God first. Then you should know that, okay, what's our call? What are we doing? Because if someone says that, oh, I'm going to spend 10 hours a week at the soup kitchen, the other person says, no, there's a problem, conflict. If some person says, I'm going to fund a kid through World Vision in South America, and the other person says no, then there's a problem, right? Because your belief system of charity, giving back, spending time with the faith community, spending time in prayer, all these things are very different. And I think those are very important things to think about. And one of the things which I learned, which was very sad, that a lot of people who claim to be Christians and very conservative, evangelical style Christians, they focus, when they are prepping to get married, their focus is on getting to that wedding day. How am I looking? How many dresses I have? Am I in good shape? Am I looking pretty enough? Whereas they don't pay attention to the life after that event. When I'm going to be a wife or I'm going to be a husband, that's the real marriage. That event was just for half of the day, not even full day. But are you ready for the rest of the stuff? So in that case, I'm 100% with you that there should be that build-up. Because in the build-up, you get to know people. You can have those conversations. But if your beginning was just on an event, sexual event, or a series of events, without knowing the person's lifestyle, real issues, real challenges, baggages, trauma you mentioned, then you might be setting yourself up to a failure, and no wonder our marriages fail. What about reading more about romance or readings and all?
It's kind of just the same, really. It's kind, as I said, it's kind of on the basis of tropes.
How do you define tropes for us who don't understand what tropes is?
They're quote unquote, that's a Burke terminology for people who read. Obviously, tropes are like the heroine is a plus size heroine, or the heroine is a part of a motorcycle club, or the hero. A lot of them are. Some of them, quote unquote, talk about. Trying to remember them now, but like most of them are like basic stuff that you would find in the book. So that's what tropes are considered, like basic ideals or basically tidbits of the information you would find in the book that you're reading about. As I said, whether the heroine is plus size, whether the hero, mainly the male, is a billionaire or a single dad or a part of a motorcycle club or a firefighter, those types of things.
So going back to romance,
Mm-hmm.
how do you think a romance, the concept of romance, is understood in pop culture, and it should be understood in a conventional, coming from more like a conventional mindset?
In the pop culture sense, there is still the buildup of it a little bit, but more so on the basis of them maybe talking for a few, like just going through a talking stage and then it leading up to the physical intimacy, and then sometimes nothing after.
Mm-hmm.
Or it gets to a talking stage and then it stops. That's kind of where we're at currently with it, where it gets to a talking stage and then it stops, or it does get to a date and then you go on maybe like 3 to 5 dates and then you end up sleeping together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how the basis is now within the culture that we're living in, where a lot of people aren't willing to commit to each other. A lot of people aren't willing to actually have full conversations with each other. A lot of them are mainly texting one another or social media reference of like sending Snapchats to each other and stuff like that as a form of communication. And whereas in a conventional sense, it is still kind of like that because it's just more awkward in a conventional sense, because granted, people shouldn't be going to church to find a husband. Obviously, they should be wanting to get closer to God, but a lot of the times there are certain influences within the church that kind of frown upon it, of you dating someone within the church sometimes. And then there's that still awkward stage. Sometimes even parents see two people and think like, oh, these two people will be good together, and
Set them up.
you try to set them up. Yeah. And it feels awkward and uncomfortable, and you feel weird because you've never been in that situation before. And if it's meant for you, you'll then pursue it. But a lot of the time you just feel uncomfortable, because in both situations you're still going to feel awkward because it's a normal reaction and some form of embarrassment. But I feel like in a more conventional sense, there is both a boundary that's there to kind of help you kind of maybe just turn it into a friendship for the time being. Not just saying that you can't get that in the cultural sense as well, but in a conventional sense, you have that boundary of just being friends, and then maybe potentially it leading to something more, and then sometimes it doesn't. Granted, as I said, it's the same in both cases of it leading to something and sometimes it not, and then it is fully leading to something. But I feel like in most cases, with a church community, they're more of like just bringing the youth together and making sure that they're all there to praise God, and then if they leave and they still want to hang out with each other, that's their own choice.
Yeah.
But I feel like in a lot of times, sometimes you question, when you're starting the process of a relationship, you're still questioning whether you should follow God or whether you should follow society, where they do public displays of affection, or they do have premarital sex, or it's all that as in conventional of the spiritual warfare that you're having to battle when in a relationship with someone, because you're questioning which value do you stand on. Do you stand on the spiritual side, or do you stand on the societal side, where they sometimes encourage that idea of, oh, it's okay, you could use it as a test drive to get to know each other, or you could use it as a way to seeing if you're compatible. Why? It should be about you. To me personally, it should be about you being compatible emotionally more towards each other and to God than about the being physically compatible. But yeah, that's kind of the basis of it for me. And don't get me wrong, there are Christian romance books out there where it is more about the foundation of the romance and actually building a relationship with each other emotionally. Granted, those are like, you gotta kind of have to look for those books.
Sure, yeah. And I think we need that kind of stuff, because what happens is, like, this is my personal opinion based on experiences. The classic concept of romance, gestures and taking care of someone you're interested in, being nice to them, being kind to them, those things are not received well. And if it's coming from a male, the male might not be considered macho enough. Or I still remember someone, it's been a while, and one of our class fellows, and she was a female, she shared that, someone maybe came to visit her, no, she came to visit and spent a night at his place, and that person was very nice to her the next day, and she was surprised. Nah, that's too nice. And in my mind, if a guy is a nice guy, what else you want? But the term nice guy culturally in today's world has a negative connotation, a weird kind of connotation.
A lot of people nowadays assume nice is boring.
Right.
And when they're being respectful, there's no issue with them being respectful. It just feels like to them that by them being respectful, they're not willing to actually try anything. And then certain women, granted, not all women, but not that I've known any Christian women to do this, but they feel like, why aren't you trying something?
Mhm.
Like, what's wrong with me that you're not trying something with me? And I feel like a lot of them don't know. Like, they don't probably want to. That's also there too. Like, they don't want to, or they don't have a comfortability wanting to, because they don't understand it either.
Right.
And as you know, a lot of young men don't always have the best emotional intelligence because of the fact that they were raised not to have any. It's not that they don't have any. Well, yeah, they were kind of raised not to really tap into their emotions because they're known to be the more head of the household and be the base and be the head, and whereas women are the base, which is the neck. But a lot of young men aren't told to tap into their emotions a lot. They're told to be the head, they're told to be the stronghold, they're told to be the provider, they're told to be this, be that. And they're told to then take their feelings, stuff it inside, and not deal with any of it. And it actually kind of hurts a lot because I see like a lot of like certain family members of mine. Granted, they don't always talk to me, but I do offer it up saying, hey, if you want to talk, I am here for you. Because I know sometimes they have habits of just like internalizing everything like I would, because I also have that problem of internalizing feelings and then it getting too much to the point where I then either want to scream or I cry. So I know what that feels like. And I always supported people, and especially men, even within the church, to cry, because you need that release, even if it isn't in a well, that is a healthy way. I meant like, thankfully, it's not in a negative way because that won't end well. But like, they need other healthier avenues to release whatever anger or hurt or pain that they've built up over the years, because a lot of them internalize whatever pain they have because they're not sure how to express it. And that's also what on my journey that I'm working on, is like not internalizing my feelings towards people and actually saying it in a respectful manner without actually saying it how I normally would with an attitude. That's also what I'm working on, is like not telling people off with an attitude, but in a respectful manner that leaves me feeling good. Not about leaving the other person good, so to speak, but just leaves me feeling better in a way that I can actually tell someone off with words of impact instead of words of negativity, because I realize, yes, words can hurt.
Oh yeah.
Words can always hurt people, and no one really. People know that there's power in the tongue, as the Bible says, and how you say certain things to people does affect them negatively. And as I said, with young boys and young gentlemen, they take those words to heart. A lot of people think they don't, but they take those words to heart, and they need those words of affirmation of saying, I love you, I'm proud of you, you did a good job. And then they also need that slight sternness where it's like, you were in the wrong there, but this is where you're going to learn the lesson. And I'm not saying that spanking is a necessity, but if they're really out of line, then sometimes you got to put them in line. But yeah, it just is about a more stern mindset for them of where they can learn to balance both emotions of whether it be anger or sadness.